I teach U.S. presidential history at Rice University, and since President Obama entered the White House, he's had me regularly be part of dinners that I have with the President and First Lady Michelle Obama. Just right after the Denver speech, Rolling Stone called me. I've written cover stories for them before. I've written cover on Hunter S. Thompson, the writer, and I wrote one on Bob Dylan for Rolling Stone. They had an opportunity to do an interview. They called me and said the White House had approved me, and the President thought it would be a good idea. So I found myself on a plane up to Dulles and took a car into Marriott right across from the White House and went in and spent a little time with Jay Carney, the press secretary, but then actually walked all around the White House with the President, and we ended up sitting down in the Oval Office, and as he said, let's fire it up. After we did some small talk, we did about a 45-minute interview, and then also had Loose Banner while I was spending part of my afternoon there. And we did ran in Rolling Stone the transcription of the one-on-one, verbatim. And yes, I mean, it's history in the making. I got to ask him, any questions I wanted to. There were no ground rules except at my editor at Rolling Stone, Jan Wenner, thought that we had to either go domestic or foreign policy, that if we were jumping around too much, it would be a little bit of a hodgepodge interview. So I really focused on domestic politics and asking him to sum up his first term and imagine what a second Obama term would look like. The hardest problem is so many questions you want to ask. I had a list that I made on my own legal pad of, I ended up being about 100 questions, and the hard part is windowing that down. I had questions I wanted to ask him about topics that aren't the main tier topics, the things that are near and dear to my heart, questions about the border with Mexico that I never got to ask, or about drilling for oil in Alaska in the Chesapeake Bay, but instead you had to go with the big questions of dealing with Roe versus Wade, dealing with the women, dealing with Romney's 47% quote and where he was, and he delivered on that in the Rolling Stone piece. And also things like, I really pushed him on Obamacare and how he would get it through in a second term, but do you even like it being called Obamacare? It used to be a term of derision. The American right was hammering it as Obamacare. He's co-opted the term and sees it as, if he gets reelected, as his great legacy. Obamacare will go in history next to Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. And so we played around with all of that. And then I've always wondered why his administration, much like, say, Jimmy Carter's or George Herbert Walker Bush's, never really found a term to describe what they were doing, like the New Deal or the Fair Deal or the Great Society. And I've heard him in a lot of speeches say the phrase fair shake. I want a fair shake for the American people. And I asked him, would in history you mind your whole White House tenure being called the fair shake? And he said, that sounds good coming from a historian. I like that. And I think that will get picked up by scholars, that maybe the reason it's a fair shake is he's trying to finish a liberal social compact with the people, which Obamacare is part of, but also last civil rights things like gay marriage, protecting a woman's right to choose, not having Medicaid or Medicare involve vouchers in any way. All of that lumped together may end up getting known as the fair shake, and this Rolling Stone article would be the seminal primary source for him agreeing that that's a good idea. It helps me here at Rice as a professor. Not only did I talk to my classes, my presidential history class, about it, but it gets me in the mode for teaching, because you realize how exciting presidential elections are and what it means to be president. And when you walk around there, I was looking at the portraits of all the other presidents, and Obama and I were talking about, for example, a Remington statue that Theodore Roosevelt had donated to the Oval Office, and we were getting to talk about some of those artifacts. So it has a, long term, it's wonderful. I have 3 kids. Someday I'm going to be an old man, and maybe I'll be lucky to live long enough to have grandkids, and I'll always be proud to show them that I did a seminal cover story interview during one of the most historic elections in American history.